This is Julia.
And I am Nawi, the prettier one because my family said so. And yes, we intended to be your hosts for today's lecture.
Today's lecture? But I thought we were gonna play a game.
No, I don't want to play a game.
But we wanna play a game. Right, guys? Do you wanna play a game? Yes! Parang lahat ako sila. Do you wanna play a game? Yes! And with that, welcome to Family Feud!
Alright, for today's Family Feud, our first question is, ano ang linyahan ng mga taong gustong makipag-break? Ano kaya ang linyahan ng mga taong gustong makipag-break? So, guys, Julia will be going around to ask for your opinions. If it's not in our answer board, you will hear the sound. But if your response gained collective acceptance by enough number of people, you will hear the sound ding 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 ding. Are we clear? Are we clear?
Yes.
Okay, so Julia, ulit ang tanong natin, ano ang linyahan ng mga gustong makipag-break?
Nice one, Abby. So, who wants to answer our question? Isa.
It's not you, it's me.
It's not you. It's correct.
Yes.
Nice.
Parang ngayon ang ating number one answer.
Based on experience. Okay. Who wants to answer next?
Napapagod na ako.
Napapagod na ako. Nawi, is it correct?
And
Hey, okay, who wants to answer next?
You deserve better.
You deserve better. Nawi, is that correct?
and
Oh my God, hindi pa kasi yata sila nabibreakan, kaya gano'n. Hindi nila masagot. Who wants to answer our question? Lawrence? Shout mo na lang. Ayun, nakag-break. Guys, who wants to answer our question?
parang sa freshie side, parang may gustong sumagot.
Focus muna ako sa studies. Now, is that correct?
Tatanggapin natin. Ting ding ding ding.
Okay, accepted. We have 2 answers na, right? Guys, we still have 6 answers. Who wants to guess? Ay.
I need space.
I need space. Now, is that correct?
Ting ding ding ding.
Okay.
Parang based on experience yon.
That's 3 out of 8. You still have 5 answers left. What do you guys think? There. Okay. What's the answer? You deserve better. Now you.
Ting ding ding ding.
Next one. Next answer.
I'm sorry pero may iba na.
I'm sorry pero may iba na. Now, is that correct?
Tatanggapin din natin kasi variation yan. Ting ding ding ding.
Okay, how many answers do we still need pa now?
Parang kailangan pa natin ng 4 or 3.
Tatlo?
Guys,
Okay, guys, we need-
clue. Collective acceptance. Ibig sabihin, ibigay nyo na yung pinaka-cliche na sagot. Ano kaya yun?
Lawrence again.
binababangan pa ako eh. I need to find myself first. Yeah, naliligaw ata.
I need to find myself first. Now here, is that correct?
Ink.
Sino ba yung nakapag-break sa'yo? Okay. Okay, and with that, since nakuha na naman natin majority of the answers, we will now move on with our agenda for today. But as you can see in our screen, here are the answers for our question. And it is an answer, these are the answers of the majority. It's not you, it's me. This isn't working. I need time or space. We need to talk. Cool off muna. I met someone, di na kita mahal, and I'm not ready. Ayan, so we will end our game here. So we really enjoyed the game, right guys?
Grabe, nakikita ko yung enjoyment sa mga mukha ng mga nakipag-break at nakipag-break at nakipag-break. But before we proceed to our program, we would like to acknowledge the presence of our former faculty member, Mr. Eddie Valdez. Please give him a round of applause. Ayan. So, Sir Eddie, I hope you enjoyed our game because we enjoyed our game. Okay, so, guys, dahil decision kami today, di ba? Mag-move on na tayo to our proper program. Well, hindi proper yung kanina. Pero okay, let's start with the lecture. You know, before that, please be mindful of some reminders.
First, please observe proper decorum throughout the event. We ask that you may kindly silence your mobile devices and avoid any loud talking or movements that may disrupt the program.
And after the lecture, the floor will be opened for any questions, comments, or clarifications.
Now, let us formally start off today's program. May we call on our project co-head for this lecture series and incoming third-year student, Ms. Tatiana Innumerables, to give us her opening remarks.
Hello, okay. Good afternoon, everyone, to the audience, our hosts, facilitators, our department's faculty, and most especially to our guest speakers who made time to grace us today to share their wisdom with us. So today is the final day of the Mind, Knowledge, and Analysis lecture series. So since the first day with Sir Sammy Vera Cruz, we have listened to his lecture that was undeniably thought-provoking, and we shared a fruitful discussion talking about virtue epistemology. I am certain that everyone here is still carrying with themselves the eagerness to learn more about knowledge, but also about the matters that come with knowledge too, that may resonate with each and every one of us. On behalf of the Department of Philosophy and the organizing committee, I would like to offer my sincere gratitude to everyone in this room. Thank you for joining us today. We are truly honored to have you all here right now. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome all of you to the final day of the Mind, Knowledge, and Analysis lecture series.
Thank you so much, Ms. Innumerables, for that delightful message. That was such a good way to open our lecture for today.
Now, so we can move on to the segment that we have all been waiting for. May we call on incoming fourth-year philosophy student, Ms. Orange Gita, and incoming second-year philosophy student, Ms. Angela Barcelona, to introduce and welcome our first speaker of the day.
Good afternoon, everyone in attendance. Our first speaker for today is
a distinguished full professor at the Department of Philosophy, De La Salle University, Manila. He has previously served as the department's chair and graduate program coordinator. He earned his bachelor's, cum laude, and master's degrees in philosophy from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and his doctoral degree in philosophy with high distinction and outstanding dissertation award from DLSU Manila. Moreover, he previously taught full-time at the Department of Philosophy of the University of the Philippines, Diliman, where he also served as assistant to the chair for several years. He became a visiting professor as well at Mahidol University, Thailand in 2014.
In addition to what has been mentioned, he specializes in ethics, philosophy of language, and philosophy of mind, and contributes to the development of Filipino philosophy. Furthermore, his book, Mind, Science, and Computation, forwarded by Tim Crane, was a finalist in the 2013 National Book Award, while his book, Ang Mabuting Kita, Mga Issue ng Etika sa Negosyo, won the 2024 NASP, National Academy of Science and Technology Outstanding Book Award. He is the editor of the forthcoming book, AI Ethics Primer for Filipinos, to be published by the PUP Center for Philippine Studies. Everyone, let us all give a big round of applause and welcome Professor Napoleon Lobaquiao Jr.
So, magandang hapon o tanghali sa ating lahat. Una sa lahat, maraming salamat kay Henry for his invitation to be part of this lecture series. Okay. So, for this afternoon, I will be talking about collective intentionality. Kasi tinanong ko si Henry, ano kaya magandang pag-usapan? So I gave him a list of topics and then he said, students may be interested in this topic. So specifically, I will be focusing on John Searle's theory of collective intentionality, and I will deal with a specific objection to his theory, to which I will respond using the framework of Frege. So, next slide please. Here are my objectives. First, to present the key points of Searle's theory, and then to respond to an objection, so-called internalist objection, leveled against this theory using a Fregean framework. And such will be the flow of my discussion. So first, some preliminaries to contextualize my discussion, at the same time to establish the relevance of this topic, and then I'll proceed immediately to the key points of this theory, and then I'll present the internalist objection, and then the Fregean response. Okay, so some preliminaries. So we need first to have a good grasp of this concept, because this is where our discussion will revolve. So by intentionality, we mean that property of mental states to be about or directed at something. Okay? So it's in the nature of our mental states to be directed at something. So if we have beliefs, desires, fears, hopes, we can only have these mental states that they are directed at something. So if you have a belief and then ask you what your belief is about, and then you say, well, it's not about anything, so that's absurd. So if you have a belief, it's a belief in or a belief that something. And this was best put by Husserl when he said, consciousness is always a consciousness of something. Now, intentionality is one of the marks of the mental, the distinguishing features of the mental. Others include consciousness, privacy, subjective quality or qualia, ontological subjectivity. But intentionality and qualia are considered to be the primary distinguishing features of mental states, such that philosophers usually distinguish mental states into two broad types. On the one hand, you have the intentional states, also called propositional attitudes. Okay, so they are distinguished in terms of the fact that they are about something. So, intentional states include beliefs, desires, hopes, etc. On the other hand, we have the so-called phenomenal states. These are mental states distinguished in terms of their phenomenal field or subjective quality. So they include sensations and emotions. Next slide, please. Now, to further understand the nature of the intentionality of mental states, philosophers distinguish types of intentionality. And they come up with three broad types. In terms of property type, there is what we call inherent intentionality, meaning the kind of intentionality standardly attributed to mental states. They are inherent because they are in the very nature of mental states. In other words, we can't help but our mental states be directed at something. In other words, it's not up to us with regard to the fact that our mental states are directed at something. We also have what we call derived intentionality, also called imposed intentionality, which is attributed to words, signs, maps, etc. These things are about something, but their being about something is simply imposed on them by our mind. Like, for instance, think of words. Now, by themselves, they do not refer to certain objects. They refer to certain objects by virtue of our collective consciousness. Now, see, so it is us who impose on them that they refer to certain things. So that's the right intentionality. And the third kind is as-if intentionality, also called metaphorical intentionality. So standardly attributed to the states of nature and machines. So sometimes in our ordinary context, we attribute mental states to machines for convenience in explanation. So sasabihin natin, patayin mo na yung TV, bakit pagod na yan? Okay. So previously they said, yung mga forefathers natin, due to lack of sufficient knowledge about nature, they would attribute mental states to natural phenomena to explain processes. So when I was a little that we usually say, bakit kumukulog? Kasi si San Pedro nagbo-bowling. Okay, so that's one way of explaining it. We attribute mental states to natural processes. So that is as-if. Now, take note that I qualified it as standardly because there's disagreement among philosophers which things have the attribute of being inherent or as-if. So Henry told me that some of you are in his field of mind class. So that there is a view that says that actually all types of intentionality are as-if. Even our attribution to mental states of humans is also as-if. Now, right now, I said there a paradigm example of as-if intentionality is the kind that we attribute to machines, but right now some are thinking because of the ongoing sophistication of AI, certain AI machines might develop inherent intentionality. Okay, so this is still an ongoing discussion. Now, with regard to the range of application, where we will be focusing on, intentionality is either individual or collective. So, self-evidently, individual intentionality, the intentionality of the mental states of individuals. So, I believe, I hope, I fear, these are individual mental states. Okay. But, aside from the fact that we have individual mental states, kaya kanina sabi ko, mukhang na-introhan na yung talk ko. Kasi, you were talking about collective consciousness, so for example, okay, somebody says, she is beautiful, okay? But whether it is a social fact or not, depends on collective consciousness, isn't it? Okay? So we also, in our everyday life, deal with collective consciousness. It's not just, I believe, you desire, we also engage in collective conscious states, that we believe, we desire, okay, so on, and so forth and so on. Next slide, please. Now, this is just to give context to our discussion. Standardly, especially in a regular field of my class, what are being investigated are the nature of individual mental states. So we talk about the nature of their existence, okay? And here we have the classic debate between the non-materialist and the materialist views. I hope you are familiar with the specific versions. So what are examples of non-materialist views? So you have idealism, dualism, materialist views. What are examples of such views? You have the mind-brain identity theory, functionalism, what else? Behaviorism, eliminative materialism, instrumentalism, okay? And of course, computationalism. Now, we also have mind-body relation issues dealing with ontological and causal relations between mental states and bodily states. Ontologically, we ask the question, how does consciousness arise from brain states? Okay, so for instance, we have a view called emergentism, claiming that consciousness is an emergent property arising from the evolution of our mind. That's one point of view. Now, we go to the causal mind-body problem. We talk about the causal relations between mental and physical events. Who was the philosopher who said that there is a pre-established harmony? His view is usually referred to as parallelism, that mental states and bodily states actually do not cause one another. You know, like this. Review ko lang kayo na. So that's part of the discussion, the mind-body relation. Of course, Descartes advances the view called interactionism. So, in other words, all possible directions between physical and mental, all possible causal directions between the physical and the mental are real. Mental to physical, you have an intention, you carry out with your behavior. Physical to mental, okay, you get wounded and you feel pain. So mental to mental, you have a belief which causes you to desire, so forth and so on. Okay, so, but we will be focusing on collective mental states, and this line of inquiry raises a unique set of philosophical questions themselves. For instance, in the area of metaphysics, so there is a question about what is the ontological status of the subjects of these collective mental states. So, are they real in the same way that individual subjects are real? So So should we include in our ontology collective agents, over and above individual mental states? And then a sub-branch of metaphysics we call social ontology, which I will be talking about later on. So we talk about the ontological status of social facts. Are they reducible to physical facts? And collective intentionality has a critical role to play here. Now, of course, ethics, okay, when you talk about collective agents, well, for instance, corporations, they have legal personalities, and they have legal rights and legal duties, of course. But for instance, when we talk about the environment, we ask, for instance, what is the moral duty of corporations towards the protection of the environment? So now we are raising a moral issue. So, do collective agents also have a moral status in such a way that we can also attribute to them moral rights and duties? Okay. And then, of course, in the area of decision making. So, how group thinking influences individual thinking. I believe game theory also has something to say about this. Okay, next slide, please. Now, collective intentionality, the term itself, is relatively new because it was coined by John Searle in his 1990 paper. Okay, but the concept itself has long been investigated by philosophers. For instance, Durkheim talked about collective consciousness. Jean-Jacques Rousseau talks about the general will, and then, of course, Hegel talks about the absolute spirit. Okay. Now, with regard to contemporary accounts, now these are then dominated by analytic philosophers. Now, the contemporary accounts subscribe to what we call methodological individualism. Okay? This principle claims that an adequate explanation of collective consciousness, collective intentions, okay, should not go beyond individual minds or brains. In other words, there are only individual minds or brains, and it should be the limit or the perimeter by which we should explain the phenomenon of collective intentionality. Okay, now, if you are interested in this kind of research, there are these three competing accounts. Because, as I said, there are only individual minds. But how do we explain the transformation from individual states to collective states? So the approach is, let's examine the structure of a propositional attitude. Let's say, I believe that P, and it has three components. The I is the subject, believe that is the mode, and P is the content. Which part should be collectivized here? So there are disagreements here. Some say we should collectivize the subject, represented by Margaret Gilbert. Some say we should collectivize the content, represented by Bradman, and then the mode account by Searle and Tuwamela. Next slide, please. Okay, so I gave you a background about collective intentionality, but where we will be talking about Searle's theory. Now, Searle's theory of collective intentionality is actually just a part of his social ontology. He's investigating collective intentionality because he thinks that it plays a crucial role in his social ontology. So let's explain a little what constitutes Searle's social ontology. Now, according to Searle, social facts are not reducible to physical facts. And so, some like to associate with him with regard to his position that the social sciences are not reducible to the physical sciences in that regard. Why? Because the elements that explain social facts are are not the same as those that explain natural facts. Searle identifies several building blocks of social facts or social reality, including constitutive rules, assignment of status and the background, and of course collective intentionality. Okay, let me just say a little about the constitutive rules. Constitutive rules are rules that govern forms of behavior that are created by the rules themselves. Okay? So for instance, of course, si Sir may example na football gawin natin basketball So, halimbawa, yung game ng basketball, yung phenomena dyan, yung mga realities dyan, created by the rules themselves. In other words, prior to the rules of basketball, there was no such thing as basketball. So, let's say a 3-second violation or a traveling violation, okay, can only be explained in terms of the rules of basketball. To quote him, nasabi niya, no amount of physics can explain that. Because they are only explainable in terms of the constitutive rules. Okay? So that's one reason why he thinks that social facts are not reducible to physical facts. But collective intentionality for Searle is the critical element here in explaining the existence of social facts, such that he remarked that any fact involving collective intentionality is a social fact. Okay, so what creates a social fact is collective intentionality. A social fact is mind-dependent but objective. So this is the unique characteristic of social facts. Mind-dependent because their existence is dependent on our consciousness. But they are at the same time objective, not based on personal preferences. So, for example, money. Okay? So if I have a piece of paper, Sir says that is a brute fact. That I have a piece of metal here or a piece of paper. That is the brute fact. But this piece of paper also has a monetary value, which is a social fact. That it is a, let's say, 50 peso bill. Okay? Now, what creates the reality that it's a 50 peso bill is our collective intentionality. So, that phenomenon, 50 peso bill, exists only insofar as we all agree to see it as such. Okay? So, that is the sense that it is mind-dependent. But it's also objective. Because it's not a matter of our personal interest. Okay? So, hindi ka pwede pumunta sa tindahan, sasabihin mo doon sa tindera, social construct lang naman itong value nito So, you have a 50 peso bill, sasabihin mo, but I prefer to treat this as a 1,000 peso bill. Okay? Social construct lang naman Of course, hindi pwede, di ba? Okay? So, next slide please. So now, let's first have an overview with regard to where is Searle in this debate about collective intentionality. So I have here a list of the competing positions here. So I divide the positions into two broad types, the non-reductionist and the reductionist views. And then under the reductionist views, we have the abstract view, and then Searle's view, which is the biological view, and then we have the reductionist views divided into the simple and complex versions. Next slide, please. Now let's dive into what each view is claiming. Okay. So first we have the non-reductionist view. So non-reductionism. So collective intentionality is a primitive, or if you like, a simple or irreducible phenomenon. Being irreducible to individual intentionalities. You cannot reduce the collective mental state to individual mental states, according to the non-reductionist view. Now we have the abstract view. collective intentionality is a metaphysical trinity, being the intentionality of an abstract entity or mind existing in its own right. Yeah? So if you have a collective mental state, this view claims that it is the state of an abstract entity, existing over and above individual minds. Like, of course, the paradigm example is Hegel's absolute. Now, the biological view claims that collective intentionality is a biological trinity. So, if you're studying philosophy of mind, this very much aligns with Searle's position called biological naturalism. Yeah? So, he maintains his position that collective intentionality is a biological trinity, being the intentionality of biological individuals engaged in cooperative acts. So this is an inherent biological capacity of certain species, including humans and some forms of animals. Animals, especially those which are capable of group hunting. Nakita na ba kayo, no? Halimbawa yung pack of lions, no? Paano kaya nako-coordinate nila yung hunting nila, no? Meron akong napanood na yung mga monkeys na hunting nila yung drive nila yung another species of monkeys, tapos may nakaabang pala doon sa kabila, na ambush. So they're capable of coordinating their acts. So these animals are capable of collective intentionality. So it is a biological phenomenon for sure, not special to humans. Next slide, please. Now let's proceed to the reductionist views, which claim that collective intentionality is not a primitive phenomenon because it is reducible to individual intentionalities. Now there's the simple and the complex versions. The simple version claims that a collective intentionality is nothing but the summation of individual intentionalities. So if you have a collective intention, it is nothing but the totality of individual intentions. But the complex view claims that, well, it's part of it. Now there is a group of individual intentions, but there is something more that is needed. And they claim that there should be mutual beliefs. Next slide, please. Okay, to illustrate their differences, so let's take a very simple illustration. So suppose we have two individuals, Jose and Maria, and they have individual intentions. So of the form, I intend to X, referring to any kind of action. Let's say walking, painting the house, and so on. Okay? So, Jose, I intend to X. Maria, I intend, also has an individual intention, I intend to X. And then Jose and Maria have a collective intention. We intend to X together. By the way, philosophers also refer to individual intentionality as I intentionality, and collective intentionality as the we intentionality. Okay? Now, how do the competing views account for this phenomenon? Okay, what occurs in our minds if we have these intentionalities? Okay, so according to the abstract view, Jose has the intention, the individual intention. It resides in his mind. Then Maria also has an individual intention residing in her own mind. But their collective intention, we intend to X, according to the abstract view, does not reside in Jose's or Maria's mind. Okay? It resides in another mind, separate over and above the minds of Jose and Maria. There is a third mind in which the collective intentional state resides. Okay, so that's the abstract view. Next slide, please. Now, the biological view is a little more complicated. Okay, so again, what happens now if you have Maria as an individual intention, Jose as an individual intention, and then together they have the collective intention. So what happens? So for the monological view, Jose has two intentions simultaneously in his mind. Jose has the individual intention, the I intention to X, and then the we intention to X together with Maria. And then Maria also has the individual intention and the collective intention in her own mind. Okay. To make this more understandable, let me elaborate on this point by Searle. So, contrary to the view that a collective intentional state is a summation of individual mental states, according to Searle, it's the other way around. Okay? We first have the collective mental state, and we derive the intentional state from the collective mental state. So he gives the example again in sports. I'll say again, football yung mga example niya. So let's say sa basketball, okay? So each player of the game intends to execute a play. That is a collective intention. Okay? So let's execute the play. From that collective intention, each player derives an intention which will reflect his particular role in the play. So to execute the play, I need to have this individual intention whereby I will perform my role in executing the play. So I have two intentions at the same time, the we intention and the I intention, and the I intention representing my intention to play my role in the play is derived from the collective intention. Okay? Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. Yeah. So let's now talk about the simple reductionist views. Again, so what occurs in our minds according to the simple reductionist views? Well, according to this, Maria has an I intention, Jose has an I intention, and their collective intention is nothing but their individual intentions put together. So that's how you explain. How come they have a collective intention? It's nothing but putting together their individual intentions. Now, the complex view, however, claims that that's not enough. Jose has an individual intention, Maria has an individual intention. Even if you put them together, that will not explain their collective intention. Why? Because according to this view, there should be mutual beliefs. Okay. So Jose intends to X together with Maria, and he believes that Maria intends to X together with him. There should be mutual belief between one another. Jose should believe that Maria also wants to X together with him, and Maria likewise believes that Jose intends to X together with her. Okay? Next slide, please. Okay, there is a clash of theories here. First, the rejection of the abstract view. In fact, in the contemporary scene, it's no longer a contention. It's no longer in contention. No one, I think, strongly argues for the abstract view. So the abstract view is rejected. In other words, we think that it's not necessary to postulate a third mind, an abstract mind, simply to explain collective intentionality. For one, it may violate the principle of parsimony, multiplying entities beyond necessity. Okay? Now, rejection of the simple reductionist views as well. According to the simple reductionist view, a collective intention is nothing but the summation of individual intentions. This is also rejected. Why? Because it leaves out some critical elements in a collective intention. Searle highlights the fact that there should be cooperation among those engaged in a collective intentional state. Sir, give this example. No? Imagine there's a group of persons in a park, and then it rains, and then all of them, run towards a shelter. Okay, each acting on his or her own. Okay, not minding the other, but in a way, they manage all of them to get to the shelter. Now, contrast this to a group of persons who are actually members of a dance troupe, okay, and they are actually rehearsing, a part of their choreography, and they did the same thing. Upon raining, they run towards the shelter, but the way they did that was part of their practice of their choreography. So, if you hold on to the simple view, there's no difference between the two actions, isn't it? Okay? But there is a difference, isn't it? Okay? Dun sa random actions ng mga tao na wala namang pakialam sa isa't isa, accidental lang yung harmony ng kanilang actions. No? Pero dun sa dance group, merong cooperation. So something is lost in the simple view. Now there are others, let's say Gilbert, who gives this example. Let's say, let's walk together. Okay? Let's walk together. Then all of a sudden, you leave me behind, or you walk towards a different direction. What is the natural thing for me to do? I will rebuke you, isn't it? Are we supposed to? Isn't it that we are supposed to walk together? Bakit tayo ibang direction? Okay. In other words, if it is just a summation of individual intentionalities, you cannot explain the normativity. What gives a person the right to rebuke the other? So there should be a collective commitment to the collective intention. So it's not just a mere summation of individual intention. Next, go back. Brahman claims that suppose we are painting the house together, okay, but that general plan will have sub-plans, and one of which is what color should be used. So let's paint the house together, but you want it to paint, you want red to be the color, and I want it to be blue. Okay, are we having the same intention of making the house together? Kung yung sa'yo gusto mo pula, sa akin blue, hindi nagme-mesh yung ating sub-plans, isn't it? So that is something that will be left out if you just take the simple reductionist view. And then, of course, for Tuwemela, for example, in a group, we do our part in a group. But even though we do our part in a group, let's say you're in your organization, you do your roles in your group. You do your part, you have a collective intention, you have a project. So each one has assigned duty. But it may happen that an individual may perform his or her role for individual reasons, isn't it? Okay? Not for group reasons. Or let's say in the basketball team, okay? He's doing his part well, but he's not after the fact that for the team to win. He's after his own, let's say, merit. He wants to win the MVP, for personal reasons. That is something that will be left out in the pure summation view. Okay? Next slide, please. Now, so we said that the abstract view is rejected, the simple view is also rejected for leaving out essential components in collective intentional states. Now, John Searle, okay, also rejects the complex reductionist view, the one which claims that there should be mutual beliefs. Okay? So he rejects it for two reasons. first mutual beliefs, he claims, will lead to infinite regress. Because if I believe that you believe that, and I believe, okay, it will go on ad infinitum. Next is his main argument that it is subject to counter-example. And he uses the argument of Adam Smith, the invisible hand argument. Are you familiar with this? The invisible hand argument. This is one of the arguments used to justify the free market system. In other words, each of us will pursue our individual selfish interest, but as if guided by an invisible hand, actually referring to economic laws, our behaviors will coordinate, thereby leading to the promotion of the common good. Okay? So, dun sa view ni Adam Smith na yan, maaring they have mutual beliefs, but because each is acting based on his selfish interest, there is no cooperation, therefore, there is no collective intentionality. So, there are mutual beliefs, but there is no collective intentionality. So that rejects the complex reductionist view. Next slide, please. Okay. So after laying down the key points of Searle's theory, Searle lays down two conditions, adequate conditions, for any theory of collective intentionality to be adequate. The first, he says, it must, any theory about collective intentionality must be consistent with the fact that society consists of nothing but individuals. Since society consists entirely of individuals, there cannot be a group mind or group consciousness. All consciousness is individual minds in individual brains. In other words, this is just an assertion of what I mentioned earlier, methodological individualism. That we should not go beyond the belief that there are only individual minds. So let's explain collective phenomena, but let's maintain the fact that there are only individual minds. Okay, so that's the first condition. Next condition. Next slide, please. Now, the first condition is uncontroversial. Sinasabi lang nun okay, you can come up with any explanation about collective intentionality, but make sure that don't posit an extra supra-individual abstract mind. Okay? But this one is the controversial point by Searle. He claims that any theory must be consistent with the fact that the structure of any individual's intentionality has to be independent of the fact of whether or not he's getting things right, whether or not he's radically mistaken about what is actually occurring. Ano sinasabi niya dito? Ang sinasabi niya, dapat yung theory mo may paliwanag yung phenomenon na may collective intention tayo kahit radically mistaken ka doon sa collective intention mo. Ano ibig sabihin? Ibig sabihin, halimbawa, next slide please, para mas mahinaw. Halimbawa, meron akong collective intention to push the car together with my friends. Okay? But supposing, yung mga friends ko wala namang ganong intention. Okay. O kaya naman, hindi sila nagko-cooperate sa isa't isa. O kaya naman, fiction lang ng mind ko na may friends ako na nandoon, wala namang pala. Ibig sabihin ni Sir, kahit mangyari daw itong mga to, meron pa rin yung collective intention ko. Do you agree with him? Okay. Sabi niya, dapat may paliwanag mo na kahit wala itong mga ito, yung collective intention mo, nandoon pa rin. Okay? So, next slide please. Next slide please. Next slide please. Okay. Ito ngayon ang mga reaction ng critics sa kanila. Sabi nila, it's absurd.
how do you make sense of that? Na yung second condition niya. Paano tayo magkakaroon ng collective intention? Let's say, I want to push the car together with my friends. Wala namang tao, ako lang. Na? Or perhaps, even more radical, wala rin namang car. Na? Okay? So I'm just hallucinating. So sabi nila, absurd naman itong condition na to. So, i-emphasize, these are examples, these are just representatives of those scholars who object to Searle in that manner. Next slide please. So, sabi nila, itong condition is Searle na eternalist conditions that will contradict the very nature of social collective intentionality. So, sasabi nila, incoherent si Searle dito. Na? Sabi mo, collective. May cooperation. Pagkatapos, sasabihin mo, dapat may paliwanag mo na meron pa rin akong collective intentional state even if I'm radically mistaken. Even Searle even goes on to say, dapat may collective intention pa rin ako even if we are brains in vats. You've heard of that expression? Just to emphasize the fact that I may be hallucinating, but my collective intention remains to be intact. Okay? So some critics say, this is absurd. How do you make sense of it? So this is, now I proceed to my second part, where I will respond to this objection. Next slide, please. Okay. My thesis is simply that this radical mistake condition of Searle, again, how do you explain the fact that our collective intention remains intact even if we are radically mistaken, is actually a logical extension of the no reference problem in the phenomenon of intentionality. Ano ba itong no reference problem? Okay? Itong no reference problem pertains to the unique, or if you like, puzzling nature of intentionality to remain intact even if the object doesn't exist. Let's say I believe in Santa Claus. There's no Santa Claus. Does it mean I don't have the belief? What do you think? A child believes in Santa Claus. There's no Santa Claus. Do we say that the child doesn't have the belief? Okay. In fact, if you are worrying about something which is so real to you, it affects your life, only to find out later that you are worrying about nothing. Isn't it? Okay? So this is a puzzling nature of intentionality. We can direct our minds to anything, even those things that do not exist, and yet those mental states remain to be about them. Nag-feel of language na ba kayo? Hindi pa? Sa feel of language, sila Bertrand Russell, Ayan ang dinidiscuss nila doon yung referring expressions. Meron daw mga referring expressions that do not really refer. But not the same, they are referring. Okay? But there are referring expressions that do refer actually. Okay? But let's go back to intentional states. Do you follow itong puzzling nature? Okay. So, let me give further examples for instance that you can relate with. Anyway, mamaya na lang. So, any adequate theory of intentionality must be able to address this problem. So next slide please. Yung philosopher that took this seriously was Brentano. Okay. So he was concerned about how do we resolve this? How is it possible for a mental state to be about something that doesn't really exist? And his answer is that whenever we are conscious of something, okay, if we direct our mental states at something, that something which he calls the intentional object is actually just an idea. An idea. So, if I believe in Santa Claus, what I believe in is an idea of Santa Claus. Such that even if Santa Claus doesn't exist, my belief is still about the idea. Di ba? So that explains why the mental state continues to be about something that doesn't exist. Because it is actually just about an idea. Even though the object that the idea is supposed to represent isn't there, my mental state remains to be about the idea. Di ba? Okay? But this runs into difficulties. Runs into difficulties. Ang unang nag-react sa kanya si Edmond Husserl. Sabi niya, sir, medyo malabo yun kasi kung tama si Brentano, kung ang pinag-uusapan natin fictional entities, I believe in the unicorn. The unicorn doesn't exist. My belief is still about the unicorn, isn't it? But if we are talking about real entities, such an explanation will not work. And it will distort the intention of the subject. Supposing Paul wants to marry Sophia. Okay. Sino yung gusto pakasalan ni Paul? Yung idea niya ni Sophia? If you are in love with someone, are you in love with the idea of that someone or in love with the person? Baka in love ko yun sa idea niyo nung person. Kaya pag namigil yung tao, kahit hindi siya, in love ka pa rin doon sa tao. In love ka doon sa idea mo. Doon sa tao. So, sabi ni Husserl, it will distort the meaning, isn't it? Okay, next slide please. Ano ang solution ni Husserl dito? Kasi sabi niya, it will not work yung solution ni Brentano. Na yung intentional object is just an idea. So, ang solution ni Husserl, yung concept niya ng noema. Okay? Noema. This is a technical term. I will not go into the details, but I will just say, itong concept niya ng noema functions in the same way as the Fregean sense. Ayan, okay. Kilala niyo ba si Frege? Dapat. Ayan ang isa sa mga tatak UP Philo. Yung picture niya nandun sa office, di ba? Kaya ka lang dapat kilala niyo si Frege. Okay. Yan ang babae sa ating lahat di ba? Yun yung tatak natin. Dapat kalala niyo yan sila Russell, Frege, Wittgenstein, Austin, yan. Mga yan, Okay. So, sabi ni mga scholars, itong noema ni Husserl ay actually, they function in the same way as the Fregean senses. So, konting backtrack ako sa history. Paano nangyari yan? Kasi, si Husserl at saka si Frege were contemporaries. Prior to philosophy, they were both into philosophy of mathematics. Si Husserl, meron niyang libro na Foundations of Arithmetic, ang nag-translate si Derrida. Okay. Ito naman si Frege, yung Foundation of Arithmetic niya, ang nag-translate si Austin. Kasi German si Frege. So, nag-abot yan, dalawang yan. Kaya lang, may clash sila. Kasi si Husserl, di ba sa phenomenology, he was following the Cartesian direction, di ba? Yung Cartesian. He remained in the realm of consciousness, yung kanyang philosophical investigation. Pero si Frege, di ba yung linguistic term, di ba? Kaya sinasabi ni Michael Dumet na siya ang father ng philosophy of language. Kasi siya nagpasinuno ng linguistic term, si Frege. So anyway, kasi may mga schools of thought sa philosophy of mathematics. So si Husserl at that time subscribed to psychologism, but Frege was a logicist. Other supporters of logicism was Wittgenstein of the Tractatus and Russell, that mathematical rules are reducible to logical rules. Anyway, so when Frege criticized Husserl using his analytical tools, which included the sense reference distinction Husserl acknowledged the critique of Frege. And some scholars say, although this is still debatable, Husserl adopted some of the concepts of Frege, including the sense-reference distinction, which he applied to mental states. Okay, so now let's proceed now to Frege. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is just a review for you. So the meaning of a linguistic expression has two aspects, reference and sense. The reference is the object a linguistic sign identifies or represents. The sense assigns mode of presenting or identifying its reference. So ito yung mga classic examples. The morning star is the same as the evening star. They have the same reference, which is the planet Venus, but each identifies the planet in a different way. Of course, in the morning, you cannot refer to Venus as the evening star. Nah? In the evening, you cannot refer to Venus as the morning star. So, those are different ways of identifying the same reference. As I told you, Frege was originally into philosophy of mathematics. In fact, his examples were mathematical, early examples. Let's say just a simple example. We say 5 plus 7 equals 15 minus 3. Both expressions on both sides refer to the same number, isn't it? But they identify the same number in two different operations. One addition, the other one is subtraction. So the sense is the way by which we, somebody told me that the Blessed Trinity, three persons, one God, is a mystery. I said, I can explain that through Frege. Because the three persons are three ways of identifying the same God. So these are three different representations of the one God. Okay? Now, Frege says, a sign that has a sense remains to be about the object its sense identifies, even if the object doesn't exist or there is no certainty that it does exist. And he gives the example, the celestial body most distant from the earth. Do you understand that? Huh? The celestial body most distant from the earth. We all understand what it means, okay? But no one is sure whether there is such a thing. Huh? So we can identify a possible object by virtue of its sense, although it doesn't exist. My favorite example is, let's say you have a concept of Mr. Right. And then, what are the characteristics of Mr. Right? Well, he's, okay. Pogi ba? Hindi, mayaman. Pogi ba kay gentleman? Okay. So, ito mga characteristics ni Mr. Right. Okay. In fact, you can give Mr. Right a dummy name. Huh? Para ito si Mr. Right. Okay? So, if you come across a person with such characteristics, he must be Mr. Right. Okay? So, you can play with your mind, Mr. Right. You may dream about Mr. Right. You may think about Mr. Right. Day in, day out. But does he really exist? Okay? You are not sure, isn't it? So you can direct your mind to something even if it doesn't exist because of sense. Next slide, please. Okay, now here are two critical points. So the Fregean solution to the no reference problem can thus be formulated as a linguistic sign remains to be meaningful and intentional despite the non-existence of its references so long as it maintains its sense. Okay? And this is Frege's solution to the no reference problem, or sometimes referred to as the reference failure problem. Next slide, please. Okay, the Fregean solution, unlike Brentano's mentalist solution, does not undermine the role of external factors or lead to problematic forms of internalism. Yung solution ni Brentano that intentional objects must be mental in status to explain the fact that our mental states remain to be intentional even if the objects don't exist. will undermine the reality of the external world, but not Frege. Di ba, yung isang bumanat kay Frege, yung the internalist daw siya, si Putnam, yung Twin Earth, Okay, so, familiar kayo nun, Okay. But there are reasons to object that whether Frege is actually an internalist. Why? Kasi for Frege, senses are contextual in determination. Ito yung isa sinabi niya only in a proposition have words really a reference, which was quoted in the Tractatus 3.3 and said to be a precursor of the use theory of meaning by Wittgenstein. Yung context principle ni Frege, yan ang inadapt ni Wittgenstein both sa Tractatus niya at sa kanyang PR. Then Frege says, the sense of a proper name is grasped by everybody who is sufficiently familiar with the language of totality of designations to which it belongs. So, kailangan mo ng propositional context and the context of a linguistic system. Next slide, please. Okay, so here are my concluding arguments. Search radical mistake condition for collective intentionality is a logical extension of the no-reference problem regarding individual intentionality. Kanina, yung radical mistake ni Searle doesn't make sense. Pero itong no-reference problem about intentional state makes sense. Diba? So, if you look at Searle's radical mistake condition simply as an extension of the no-reference problem, it will not appear as absurd. Okay? And if we adopt Frege's solution to the no-reference problem and extend it to Searle's radical mistake condition, okay, Searle's condition will make sense. In the same way that we can have an intentional state that remains to be intentional, even though the object doesn't exist because of sense, then we can also have a collective intention that remains intact even if we are radically mistaken, such that even if there are no persons, other persons, there's no cooperation. Okay? So that concludes my lecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Mabakya, for that mentally stimulating lecture. So, I can see that in your faces, guys, you have questions you want to ask. So, Jules, what's next in our program?
To proceed with today's Q&A session, we are proud to introduce our facilitator, Ms. Rachel Estanislao.
Okay, so good day everyone. So as mentioned by Jules, we will now be opening the floor for any short questions, clarifications, or comments that the audience would want to say to our speaker. So may we ask you to raise your hand so one of the organizing committee will assist you with the microphone. So kindly introduce yourself and your affiliation, and then kindly speak in order for everyone to hear your question. So yeah, we can. Anyone has a question, please raise your hand. Okay, sir. What is...
Good afternoon po. My name is Apollo Gueco. I'm a PhD student here at UP Diliman. I actually have two questions. First question would be, so nabanggit ko kanina sa handout yung solipsism. I was wondering if this version of Searlean collective intentionality might be able to address, for example, the problem of other minds. siguro a particular instance na pwede kong ibigay as an example would be, for example, if Jose and Maria are coordinating, but imperfect yung coordination nila. Is one way of putting it. So, for instance, they are a member of a faculty department and they want to produce a particular program. They have a set of instructions, but they have different, not necessarily radically different interpretations of that set of instructions, but they lead to somewhat overlapping outcomes, but outcomes that Jose and Maria might disagree on. So I was wondering maybe if this version of or this defense of Searle's collective intentionality might be able to address that particular skeptical problem. So that's the first question po. And in relation po sa, actually, I was thinking about AI epistemology for a bit. And for instance po kasi nabanggit po yung derived intentionality and active intentionality. So we attribute intentions, for instance, communicative intentions to AI, or we might instead attribute intentions to, or intentions of meaning, or communicative intentions sa words na pinoproduce ng generative AI. So I recall Digger and Kaplan, they would say na AI have beliefs, they can generate knowledge because they transmit, they can transmit justified true beliefs in AI users, therefore AI has beliefs, So I was wondering, I'm sort of uncomfortable with that idea kasi I don't know if meron talaga siyang genuine communicative intention, but perhaps collective intentionality might be able to sort of support yung ganoong idea na meron si Digger and Kaplan. In particular, this Freudian defense of collective intention. Yun lang po. Thank you po.
Thank you. Although, dami nun, So, yung solipsism, yung the belief that I alone exist. Di ba? So, in other words, when you say the only existence of which I am certain of is my own existence. Kaya nga yung mga philosophers dati, sabi nila, in terms of our mental states, we cannot be wrong. Incorrigible daw. Even if, for example, I feel pain, the fact that I feel it, it's something I cannot be wrong because it's a first-hand knowledge. Pero yung mga inferential knowledge, direct knowledge kasi ito yung mental states, kaya sabi nila, although that has been challenged, pero that's the standard view kasi sinasabi nila na minsan daw it takes another person for you to realize what you're feeling. Sabi ko, in love ka Sabi, nga no. In other words, you're not aware of what you're feeling. But the standard view is that because our knowledge of our mental states is direct, it is something we cannot be wrong. Kaya kay Descartes, diba? Clear and distinct. Yung cogito, kasi yung direct Pero yung inferential knowledge, which includes other minds, or the fact that what we are conscious of exists independently of us, that's inferential. That is something we cannot be truly certain. So some are saying Sir's second condition will lead to solipsism. Because he's saying, again, sabi niya, my collective intention remains intact, even if the social facts aren't there. So I want to push the car together with my friends. Wala naman yung friends ko, wala nga car. Na, paano ako nagkaroon ng collective intentional state? Na? Okay. Kaya sabi ng mga critics, teka muna, yung condition mo, pupunta sa solipsism yan eh. Di ba? Ngayon, yung kaya pinakita ko, maraming ways to deal with the issue of reference failure. Na? Isa doon kay Brentano, yung kay Husserlian, Fregean approach. Okay. But let me say something a little about, because this is something you will encounter as you read the classic text in philosophy, for instance. Tulad ng undergrad ako. Bakit ba problema namin itong paradox of the liar, or whether the barber shaves those who do not shave themselves, or the set of all sets, na? Okay? Sasabihin nila, teka, saan pa itong parang walang practical applications na? Yung mga, those are tests regarding the strength of a theory. Di ba? If your theory is susceptible to a logical puzzle, it's a sign of weakness. So, philosophers would like to test your theory whether it will result in a paradox, or so in the same way here, Searle is saying, for your theory to be adequate, you should be able to deal with this puzzle. Okay? Nah? So that's a sign of a strength of a theory, that it is able to deal with puzzles, or it is not itself susceptible to logical puzzles. Yun yung point nun, hindi yun yung parang, yung practical naman to, bakit itong mga philosophers, ito yung mga, okay? So, yun yun, So, going back to your, yung naman sa pangalawa, yung AI. That's correct, yan ang ngayon usapin natin sa AI, whether we can attribute mental states to them. Kasi they seem to be, they're becoming autonomous, okay, exhibiting intelligent behavior, and so on. In other words, they have become part of our social world. And in the same way, that's we are expanding the boundaries of the moral community. Previously, we included animals and ecological systems. Now we are faced with the problem whether to include AI in our moral community. Okay. And a crucial consideration there precisely is consciousness, an essential property of moral personhood. Okay, or having intrinsic moral worth, and so on and so forth. Okay. So that's a problem that some philosophers are dealing with today. And that's why I said the idea that the intentionality of machines is as if, okay, it's now being challenged. They may be capable of inherent intentionality. That's the point of the Chinese room argument, isn't it? Not that the intentionality of machines are only as if. That's the point of Searle. Okay, but Searle is working within the framework of biology. So he claims that the biological makeup is crucial for intentionality, which is rejected by some philosophers, especially the functionalists. In other words, consciousness should be ontologically neutral. In other words, if a certain physical system has the sufficient complexity, okay, not necessarily biological, but it has a sufficient complexity, it can give rise to consciousness. So if you subscribe to the idea that consciousness is not ontologically dependent, okay, it's pretty much possible for us to argue that this AI may be conscious. Okay, so that's my answer to that.
Okay, thank you for that, Prof. Mabagyaw, and I hope that answered your question. Okay, so for the next one, pwedeng yung senior dun sa likod, si Derek, can we ask him?
Good afternoon, Professor Mabagyaw. Thank you for the lecture. It was really wonderful. Although I disagree with Searle's theory, I can see that in the ending it really worked. My question is mainly more on the normative aspect of the collective intentionality. Kasi one thing I saw is that this can turn into either ways, good or bad. Especially, let's say, if parang may sense lang, no? What if there's like an evil demon putting me, influencing me to act on my evil desire? Of course, I can say na parang collective intentionality kami ng demon na yun to act on something bad. But I can also say on another opposite that maybe a good spirit is forcing me to act on good things, diba? So what's the normative force behind a collective intentionality? And second, are there mayroon ba tayong mga legitimate collective intentionality lang or on collective intentionality simply justified? Yun lang po.
Thank you. Whether normativity is essential to collective intentionality, again, is one of the many points of debate. Okay? One who champions that normativity is essential to collective intentionality is Margaret Gilbert. Kaya yung example niya, di ba? Okay, let's walk together. Okay. Oh, lumihis ka. Iniwanan mo ako. That gives me the right to rebuke you, isn't it? Teka, sabi mo, let's walk together. Bakit na iniwan mo ako? So in other words, yung collective intentionality may normative aspect, sabi ni Margaret Gilbert, na hindi na-capture ng simple reductionist view. Hindi simple lang na I want to walk, you want to walk, and then we want to walk together. There should be, sabi niya, collective commitment to the goal of walking together. Okay? There should be a collective subject here, but not in the ontological sense. Okay? Because we are making ourselves the subject of the collective intention. Let's walk together. And there should be a collective commitment. Okay? But some believe, some claim, yung normativity hindi essential sa collective intentionality. Si Bratman, tingin niya hindi essential yung normativity. Okay? Part siya, pero hindi siya essential doon sa nature ng collective intentionality. Follow up? Again.
Bakit sabihin natin someone committed a wrong action by being influenced by someone that, let's say, system is a sex or like you mentioned. But then again, he's the only one who has to pay for his crimes. Of course, you can say that he was punished simply based for acting on this crime. And kung isa naman, they didn't act on any sense or whatsoever. But then again, if you commit to that, like punishment for this individual, wouldn't it be na mas pinaprioritize natin natin yung reference yung tamang
Yung tanong na yan, more sa nature ng moral accountability. Not so much about collective intentionality. Although we can ascribe accountability to collective agents. Isa yan sa mga issue. Like if you hold a corporation morally accountable, is it just a convenient way of saying that the decision makers are the ones morally accountable? Or we say that it has moral accountability over and above the moral accountability of. But in the legal framework, although si Ed nandito, okay, mas alam yan, he's a lawyer. So yung attribution mo ng legal accountability doon sa collective agent, hiwalay. na doon sa, di ba doon sa mga decision makers. Kasi how do you punish a corporation, di ba? Forfeiture of license, penalty, and so forth and so on. Pero yung mga CEO doon, magdi-declare lang ng bankruptcy yun di ba? Ligtas na sila Okay, but when it comes to accountability, moral accountability, meron bang moral accountability yung collective agent? Although, yung tanong mo, more on the nature of moral accountability. So, sa moral accountability, di ba may tatlong conditions? Agency, ikaw gumawa. Intention. Intention mo talaga yung action. Okay? Knowledge, di ba? Alam mo kung tama ba yun, mali. Kaya nga yung mga bata, hindi pa pwedeng, kasi wala silang full knowledge. So, yung sa'yo, kung na-possess ka ng demon, okay, kaya mo ginawa yung action na yan, so ang question doon, are you in full control of yourself? So that is a question of intention, whether you have knowledge or you are free to perform such act under the influence ka. Kaya nga may lead to insanity, di ba? Yung mga ganun siguro. Kaya that's more of connect sa moral accountability. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for that again, Sir Mabangkiao. So I think we can entertain 2 to 3 more people. So, Theo, Adrian. Okay.
Hello sir, I'm Adrian from here from UP Diliman. I just have a clarification po. So, my question is, matayo naman sir, how does the frequent solution apply to an instance where posibleng parang may disagreement, yet may collective intention pa rin? For example po yung binali, nag-basketball po kayo. We all have the collective intention of winning, but yung yung kumbaga yung sense po natin ng winning, maaaring yung sense ko for winning iba sa plano mong manalo po. Parang ganun po. Bale, ang question po, isn't it the case na parang may conflicting senses? Sense po, in Freudian terms,
Layo.
parang, isn't it the sense na parang may conflicting senses in Freudian terms? Or, if that's the case po, parang collective intention na po? Or collective sense of the collective intentionality?
Okay. Yung nabanggit ko si Tuomela, no? Diba? Kasi you may be, kasi medyo may kapareha si Sir Jackie Tuomela. We begin with a collective intention, let's say in the basketball, we want to execute a play. And then we derive our particular role. Anong gagawin ko doon sa, anong role ko doon sa collective play? Yun yung individual intention ko. Diba? So yung individual intention mo is derived from the collective intention, not the other way around, sabi ni Sir na. Okay? Ngayon yung ang ine-emphasize ni Tuemela, even if I'm playing my role in the collective intention, okay? We still need to distinguish between the fact that I may be doing that for personal reasons or doing that for group reasons. So ito, ginawa ko yung role ko sa play. Pero mas concern ako doon sa stats para yung naghahabol ako ng MVP Di ba? Kaya nasa-sacrifice yung teamwork. Hindi mo, yung collective, yung group reasons kahit na hindi mo maabot yung MVP, pero mapanalo mo yung grupo, di ba? Sa-sacrifice mo yung sarili mo na award, pero para manalo yung team. So, you do it for group reasons. Sabi ni Tuemela, yung collective intention dito sa una, meron daw, sabi kaya ng weak. Sabi niya, weak. Kasi ginagawa ko pa rin yung role mo Pero dito, yung for group reasons, yun yung strong, weak intention. Kasi you're playing your role, at the same time, you're doing it for good reasons. Yun ang tinutumbok naman ni Tuemela. Interested ka? Yes.
In that case, sir, what if parang same naman kayo sa you don't follow the MVP, parang hindi mo naman gusto mag-MVP. Lahat naman kayo, hindi naman gusto mag-MVP or whatever. Basta manalo mo kayo, yun talaga yung reason ko. Pero like, kung...
So group reasons yan, accidental na lang. Na you get the individual awards.
Accidental na lang. So like, parang what if yung sense ko po ng pagpanalo, kasi kailangan aggressive po tayo. Pero yung sense ng kaibigan ko, passive player, passive, like more defensive side. So, iba po yung...
Ay, hindi na nag-agree doon sa play nyo. May play tayo eh. Ito ang role mo, ito role ko. Okay? Gawin natin yung mga role natin. Pag ginawa natin yan, in a way, meron na tayong collective intention. Kaya lang may strong, may weak eh, ito nila. Kasi pwede mong gawin yung role mo eh. Kasi nagpapasikat ka eh. Okay? Meron doon isa, gusto mo impress eh. Okay? Hindi naman talaga yung group reasons ang you're after eh, di ba? Pero ito sa group reasons, kahit na hindi ka maka-score, pero yun yung paraan para manalo na ang gagawin mo. So yun yung sabi ni Doy Mela, mas malakas yung collective intention dito kaysa doon sa kabila. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for shooting your shot to Sir Mabacquiao, Adrian. Okay, so we have Nico.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for the talk. It seems like parang a roller coaster ride in multiple fields kasi parang nag-blend siya together. But my question is mostly on the theoretical side of the argument. In terms of the second adequacy condition, yung strategy kasi ni sir, it seems like the reason why there's a sense na kailangan mo i-defend through reference kasi in-eliminate niya yung other points of resources na gamitin for collective intention. Kaya parang naging defense yung keep regging sense and reference as a way to safeguard the second adequacy condition. My original question was, whenever pinag-uusapan natin yung reference theories, especially like yung keep regging and that such, the natural question is, why this specific reference theory? Especially in the context of other theories like the Wittgensteinian or the Russellian theories of reference. Kasi particularly, parang nag-change yung question ko on the first answer in terms of like solipsism, na what if there are other minds? Kasi wouldn't it be safeguarded by a kind of Wittgensteinian sense of language where it presupposes that in order for language to occur in the first place, there must necessarily be other minds in the first place. So parang ang pointed question ko ngayon is, how was the elimination process or choosing process of what you would use as a reference theory or a theory to support the second adequacy condition for sir? Thank you po.
Basically because of the similarity between the radical mistake problem and the no reference problem. Kasi yung no reference problem, how to account for the fact that an intentional state or a referring expression, if you like, in language, remain to be about certain things which actually do not exist. Ito namang second condition ni sir, okay, how do you explain the fact that your mental state is collectively intentional even though there really are no other people, they are not really cooperating with you, and so on. So my hypothesis is that this second condition is just an extension of the reference failure problem. And one theory to my mind that has been able to deal with it well is the Fregean theory, which is not accidental because the Fregean theory follows the line of development from Brentano, Husserl, and so on. Okay, so although you're correct, we can use other theories in philosophy of language. But on a side point, yung solipsism, in other words, yung problem of other minds, has not really been sufficiently dealt with in terms of arguments. What they're simply saying is that it's a necessary postulate that we believe in other minds. Searle says it's part of what he calls the background. In other words, it's part of we should assume. But it's not something that we argue for, but it's something that we just assume. Just like Kant, diba? Yung postulates niya of morality, that we are free. He doesn't really argue for that, but he simply say it's a necessary assumption for morality to work. So the assumption that there are other minds is a necessary assumption for other things to work. But still up to now, in fact, that is still something has not really been, although if you want to have, sabi ni Kant, kasi nga, reacting from Hume, it's a scandal in philosophy that we haven't really fully justified the reality of the external world. But sabi naman ni Heidegger, it's a scandal in philosophy that we still need to justify it. Kasi yung being in the world already assumes that there are other minds and that there is the external world. In other words, yung mga banat nila, hindi naman directly na in-argue Parang sinasabi lang na it's a necessary assumption that we need in order to account for some other things.
Okay, thank you, Sir Mabacquiao. I think we can entertain one more question. So, who wants to ask for? Okay. Kindly state your name, your affiliation. Thank you.
My name is RJ po from PUP. I would like to ask po for an elaboration regarding Searle and Frege's view, if they have any. You said po that Searle says we derive intentionality, the I, from collective intentionality, the we intention. It appears to me that we can perhaps also be unconsenting towards our intentionality because there are systems in place that enforce a particular kind of intentionality, collectively speaking. For example, capitalism. We can go outside right now to eat, but our intention would still be imbricated upon that greater system in place. And in that greater system in place, it appears to me a hegemonic and collective intentionality governed by only a few individuals who we may call the 1%, the capitalist lords. And to what degree po can we be consenting or unconsenting po regarding hegemonic forces towards our own personal intentionality? Thank you, sir.
Ang ganda ng mga tanong yan, very challenging Pero yung una, anong relationship ni Searle kay Frege? Searle was a Fregean. Yung book na Intentionality, basahin niya Searle was actually also dealing with the problem of no reference, but not from the continental side. To Killer Russell. Remember the present king of France is bald? Diba? Yun din yun yung problem nila Russell Okay? And I hope you know that si Wittgenstein was more Fregean than Russellian. He followed Frege than Russell. Pero si Frege kasi yung senses niya abstract entities yun it belongs to what he calls the third realm. Abstract entities kasi mathematician to naniniwala sa mga Platonic entities So, abstract entities yun ang hindi sinundan ni Searle. Sabi niya, Fregean ako pero hindi ako nag-agree doon kay Searle na kailangan abstract entities itong mga senses. Okay? Yun ang relationship nilang dalawa. Like Wittgenstein, Searle followed Frege rather than Russell. Yung yung problem ng reference failure, na hindi lang yun dun sa continental side nila Brentano eh. Yun din yung problem nila Russell, na yung sa condonoting, yung referring expressions, na sabi nga niya, may mga referring expressions that are referring only in form, like the definite descriptions, di ba? The definite descriptions. The present King of France, it's a definite description and it's a referring expression, but it doesn't refer. The function of the definite description is to attribute properties, not to refer. Review lang yan sa field of language, di ba? Ano yung referring expression ni Russell? Yung proper name. Di ba? Okay. Yung definite description, predicate expressions yan eh. Although in ordinary grammar, ginagawa natin subject eh. Di ba? Kaya nagkakagulo eh. Dapat yan, predicate lang yan eh. Although in logical symbols, pag ginamitan mo ng symbolic logic, ang symbolism niyan, predicate yan. X is the present king of France. Nagiging predicate siya. So, nawawala yung temptation na humanap ka ng subject. Diba? Yun ang mga diskarte nila Russell dyan eh. Pero yung tanong mo kanina, yun, medyo mas malalim na discussion yan. In what sense can we say that we are still autonomous na given itong mga superstructures around us na yung behavior natin seem to have been in some ways programmed or influenced by these institutions. So, yan ang mga issues dyan. Although, pwede mo rin gamitin yung mga formulations ng mga philosophers to argue na we are still autonomous on a certain level. So, aware ka naman sa problem ng determinism na yung hard determinism, okay? All our actions are determined by previous events, okay? Pero may mga compatibilities na but ang definition nila ng freedom on the level of social freedom, in the sense that you're free if you are not coerced. Alala mo ba yung dati nagsosoftball thought ako dito sa UP. Si Dr. kasi Professor Malaya Ronas yung teacher ko na. Yung first statement ni Rousseau. Naalala niyo ba yan? Ano yun? Man is free but everywhere he goes he is in chains. Tumatak sa isip ko. We are free daw, but everywhere we go, we are in chains, sabi ni Rousseau. So, paano nangyari? We are free, but everywhere we go, we are in chains. Merong nagko-constrain eh, dun sa actions natin eh. Okay? So, maraming approach dyan. Pwede mo rin gamitin yung approach ni Frankfurt na so long as you have second order desires then you can say you are free. In other words, you can have the feeling that you could have acted otherwise. But it's a live question, and it's still a topic that is rich, can still be pursued. At what level or to what extent can we say that we are still free, considering the fact that we are just reacting to stimuli and our reaction has been influenced by our upbringing and social forces.
Okay, so I wish we could entertain more questions, but unfortunately, due to time constraints, we will be ending the Q&A here. So thank you to all the audience who asked, and for Sir Mabacquiao for answering all those questions. So I will be passing the mic now to Nawi and Jules.
Grabe, that was such a fruitful discussion. We could really sense that our audience was interested in our discussion for today. Grabe, thank you, Rachel, for moderating today's Q&A session. And let us give a round of applause once again to our speaker, Professor Napoleon Mabacquiao Jr. At this juncture, may we call on project co-heads Ms. Shanea Tabang and Ms. Tatiana Enumerables, as well as the department's faculty members, as we will now head on to the awarding of the certificate.
The UP Department of Philosophy awards the certification of appreciation to Professor Napoleon Mabacquiao Jr. for the Mind, Knowledge, and Analysis Lecture Series, Searle's Theory of Collective Intentionality, a Freudian Defense, which took place in the Philosophy Conference Room and Seminar Room 1, Pavilion 2, Palma Hall of UP Diliman, this 29th day of July 2025. May we call on Professor Mabacquiao here in front.
To our faculty members also, Sir Gavin, if you'd please like to. Ay, Sir Kurt pala, sorry po. Sir Kurt, please.
We'd also like to acknowledge the presence of Professor Sammy Vera Cruz. Sir Sammy should be our first lecturer. Sir Sammy, baka you would like to join us after. And then Sir Attorney Eddie Valdez as well.
Once again, thank you, Professor Mabacquiao. Now for the audience, before we continue, we would like to ask for a photo opportunity with the audience. So you can just smile in your seats.
To our speaker, Professor Mabacquiao, would like to request if you could please sit in the center, so you will be the apple of our eyes. I think the audience collectively agrees that we should take a picture with you, po.
Once again, thank you, Prof. Mabacquiao. Now for the audience, kindly scan or take a photo of the QR code on the screen right now to access this event's evaluation form. Your feedback will be greatly appreciated. This will also be your key to requesting for a certificate of participation on the first lecture of today.
Alright, I guess we have finally reached the end of the first lecture of Day 2 of the Mind, Knowledge and Analysis Lecture series. We have been your hosts, Nawi Gonoon
and Juliana Naval. Thank you for your presence in this lecture. But wait, don't go just yet, as we will be taking a 15-minute break for our organizing committee to continue distributing snacks to energize us for the next and final lecture of this year's lecture series. See you again later, and please
don't leave us because we will have a lecture after 15 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone. We're on a 15-minute break, so please be back by 3:20. Okay, 3:20.
Picture time.